Welcome to Liberty and Limits, a channel built for those who refuse to live small. This is a space where freedom meets discipline, where motivation is backed by action, and where growth comes from pushing beyond comfort while mastering self control. Here, we talk about mindset, success, personal power, and the hard truths most people avoid. Liberty means owning your choices, your time, and your future. Limits are not excuses, they are challenges to break, stretch, and redefine. If you're ready to think deeper, act stronger, and become the version of yourself that doesn't quit, you're in the right place. Subscribe, stay consistent, and let's build a life with purpose, strength, and direction. Welcome to Liberty and Limits. Visualization trains your brain for success by creating mental experiences that prepare you for real life performance. Your brain is not just a passive observer of your thoughts, it is an active processor that responds to images, emotions, and repetition. When you repeatedly visualize yourself succeeding, your brain begins to treat that imagined success as something familiar rather than something impossible. Familiarity reduces fear, and when fear is reduced, action becomes easier. Most people hesitate not because they are incapable, but because the outcome feels unknown. The brain is wired to avoid uncertainty. Visualization removes that uncertainty by allowing you to mentally rehearse success before stepping into it. When you see yourself confidently speaking, leading, building, or achieving, your brain starts building neural pathways that support those actions. This is the same reason athletes visualize their performance before a competition. They are programming their nervous system to respond with confidence instead of panic. Visualization also shifts your self-identity. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your self-image. When you consistently picture yourself as disciplined, focused, and capable, your brain slowly updates its definition of who you are. Once your identity changes, your behavior follows naturally. You stop forcing motivation because your actions begin to align with the person you believe yourself to be. Another powerful effect of visualization is selective focus. Your brain has a filtering system that decides what information to notice and what to ignore. When you visualize your goals clearly, your brain starts scanning your environment for anything related to that vision. Opportunities, resources, and ideas that once went unnoticed suddenly stand out. It feels like luck, but it is actually your brain working with a clear target. Visualization also prepares you emotionally for challenges. Success is never a straight path, and setbacks are inevitable. When you visualize not just winning, but also handling obstacles with resilience, your brain learns emotional control. Instead of panicking when things go wrong, you respond with calm and determination. This emotional rehearsal strengthens your ability to persist when most people quit. Consistency is where visualization becomes truly powerful. A single moment of imagining success does very little. Repetition, however, trains the brain just like physical practice trains the body. Daily visualization reinforces belief, builds confidence, and conditions your mind to expect progress. Over time, this expectation changes how you show up in small decisions, and those small decisions compound into massive results. Visualization does not replace hard work, but it makes hard work sustainable. It gives meaning to effort and direction to discipline. When your brain is trained to see success as possible and familiar, taking action no longer feels like fighting yourself. It feels like stepping into a role you have already practiced in your mind. Your mind reacts to imagined experiences in a way that is remarkably similar to how it reacts to real ones. When you picture an event vividly with emotion and detail, your brain activates many of the same neural networks that would fire if you were actually living that moment. This is why visualization is so powerful. It allows you to create internal experiences that shape your beliefs, confidence, and behavior long before external results appear. Most people underestimate how much their daily thoughts are already shaping their reality. When you constantly imagine failure, rejection, or embarrassment, your brain treats those images as warnings. It triggers stress responses, releases anxiety, and pushes you toward avoidance. Over time, this imagined failure becomes a mental rehearsal for quitting. Visualization works in the opposite direction. When you imagine yourself succeeding, staying calm under pressure, or finishing strong, your brain begins to associate those situations with safety and capability rather than fear. Emotion is the key that makes visualization effective. A weak, emotionless image does little. But when you feel pride, confidence, relief, or excitement while visualizing success, your brain encodes that experience deeply. Emotions act like glue for memory. The stronger the emotional connection, the stronger the belief that the outcome is possible. This emotional imprint influences how you react when you face similar situations in real life. Visualization also helps break negative conditioning from the past. Many people carry memories of failure that shape how they see themselves today. Each failure creates a mental image that gets replayed again and again, reinforcing doubt. Visualization allows you to overwrite those old images with new ones. By repeatedly imagining yourself handling situations differently, your brain learns new responses. You are no longer trapped by what happened before. You are training your mind for what happens next. Another important effect is confidence under pressure. Confidence is not the absence of fear, it is familiarity with action. When you visualize yourself performing well in difficult situations, your brain becomes accustomed to that pressure. So when the real moment arrives, it does not feel foreign. Your body stays calmer, your thoughts become clearer, and your reactions improve. This is why visualization is used by elite performers across sports, business, and leadership. The brain is always learning, even when you are sitting still. Every image you replay is a lesson you are teaching yourself. Visualization gives you control over what those lessons are. Instead of unconsciously practicing fear, you consciously practice courage, focus, and follow through. Over time, these imagined experiences stack up, shaping your instincts and responses. When your mind treats success as something you have already experienced, your actions change. You hesitate less, commit faster, and recover quicker from setbacks. Not because life became easier, but because your brain was trained to believe that you belong in the outcome you are working toward. Visualization creates clarity and focus by giving your mind a clear destination instead of a vague wish. Most people say they want success, happiness, or growth, but their goals are blurry and undefined. A blurry goal produces scattered effort. When you visualize, you are forced to get specific. You see where you are going, how you are behaving, and what your daily life looks like. That specificity gives your brain a target, and a targeted mind works with precision instead of confusion. Clarity removes mental noise. When you do not know exactly what you want, your mind jumps from idea to idea, reacting instead of deciding. Visualization quiets that chaos. By repeatedly picturing a clear outcome, you narrow your focus. Your brain begins to prioritize what matters and discard what does not. Decisions become simpler because they are filtered through a clear vision. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Does this move me closer to what I see?" Focus is not about trying harder, it is about knowing what to ignore. Visualization trains this skill naturally. When your future is vivid in your mind, distractions lose their power. Temporary pleasures, unnecessary drama, and other people's opinions stop pulling you off track because they do not fit the picture you are holding. This does not mean discipline becomes effortless, but it becomes purposeful. You know why you are saying no, and that makes it easier to stay consistent. Visualization also aligns your short term actions with long term goals. Many people fail not because they lack ambition, but because they sacrifice the future for comfort in the present. When you visualize your future regularly, it stays emotionally alive. You feel connected to it, even during boring or difficult tasks. That emotional connection turns discipline into an act of self respect rather than punishment. You are no longer forcing yourself to work. You are choosing to honor the future you can clearly see. Another powerful benefit of visualization is confidence in decision making. When your direction is clear, you stop second guessing yourself as much. Doubt often comes from uncertainty, not inability. Visualization reduces uncertainty by reminding you what you are building toward. Even when outcomes are unpredictable, your intention is stable. This stability allows you to move forward without needing constant reassurance. Clarity also brings patience. When you can see the bigger picture, you stop expecting instant results. You understand that progress happens in layers. Visualization helps you zoom out and recognize that today's effort is a small but necessary part of a much larger journey. This perspective reduces frustration and prevents burnout. Over time, visualization transforms focus from something you struggle to maintain into something that feels natural. Your mind becomes anchored to a clear vision, and that anchor keeps you steady through distractions, setbacks, and uncertainty. When you know exactly where you are going, staying focused stops being a battle and starts becoming a habit. Action is the bridge between vision and reality, and without it, visualization remains nothing more than a pleasant mental escape. Many people misunderstand visualization and use it as a substitute for effort, believing that imagining success alone will somehow attract results. In reality, visualization is meant to fuel action, not replace it. It provides direction, energy, and confidence, but it is action that turns potential into progress. Visualization clarifies what needs to be done, but action proves commitment. When you act on what you visualize, even in small ways, your brain receives evidence that the future you imagine is possible. This evidence strengthens belief. Belief then fuels more action, creating a powerful cycle of momentum. Without action, belief weakens, doubt grows, and visualization loses its effectiveness. Action also grounds visualization in reality. Imagining success can feel inspiring, but it can also feel overwhelming if not paired with movement. When you take the first step, the goal stops feeling distant and starts feeling reachable. Each action breaks the journey into manageable pieces, reducing fear and resistance. Instead of focusing on the size of the goal, you focus on the next step you can control. Another critical role of action is feedback. Visualization shows you where you want to go, but action teaches you how to get there. Through action, you discover what works and what does not. You adjust your strategy, refine your skills, and grow stronger. Visualization without action provides no feedback, which means no growth. Progress requires interaction with reality, not just imagination. Action also builds self-trust. Every time you do what you said you would do, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. This self-trust is essential for long-term success. Visualization creates the promise of a future self, but action proves that you are willing to become that person. Over time, this consistency reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who dreams and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. Fear often disappears after action, not before it. Many people wait to feel confident before they move, but confidence is a result of action, not a prerequisite. Visualization helps you imagine success, but action allows you to experience competence. Once you start moving, uncertainty decreases, clarity increases, and momentum builds. The hardest part is almost always the beginning. Action also creates discipline. Motivation comes and goes, but habits built through repeated action remain. Visualization reminds you why the habit matters, while action turns it into something automatic. This combination makes progress sustainable, even when motivation fades. When vision and action work together, results become inevitable. Visualization sets the destination, but action builds the road. Without that road, the destination remains unreachable. When you commit to moving forward daily, no matter how small the step, the life you once imagined gradually becomes the life you live. Your future identity is built mentally before it is built physically, because every transformation begins with a change in how you see yourself. Long before habits change, before results appear, and before the world recognizes your growth, your mind must accept a new version of who you are becoming. If you cannot mentally step into that future identity, your behavior will always pull you back to what feels familiar. Most people try to change their actions without changing their self-image. They say they want success, discipline, or confidence, but deep down they still see themselves as inconsistent, afraid, or unworthy. The mind will always act in alignment with its strongest identity. Visualization allows you to rehearse a new identity repeatedly until it no longer feels fake. When you consistently imagine yourself as focused, resilient, and capable, your brain begins to normalize that version of you. Identity-based visualization goes beyond seeing outcomes. It focuses on seeing behaviors. Instead of only imagining the reward, you visualize the process. You see yourself waking up early, staying disciplined, handling stress calmly, and choosing growth over comfort. This mental rehearsal prepares your nervous system for the daily actions required to sustain success. When the moment arrives to act, it feels less like a struggle and more like stepping into character. The reason this works is that the brain craves consistency. Once you identify as a certain type of person, your actions naturally align with that identity to avoid internal conflict. If you see yourself as someone who keeps promises to yourself, skipping work feels uncomfortable. If you see yourself as someone who grows through challenges, quitting feels out of character. Visualization helps install these identity cues long before results reinforce them. Another powerful aspect of mentally building your future identity is emotional regulation. A stronger identity creates emotional stability. When setbacks happen, you do not collapse because your sense of self is not tied to temporary outcomes. You see challenges as part of the journey of the person you are becoming. Visualization trains this mindset by allowing you to mentally experience difficulty without losing confidence. Over time, repeated visualization reshapes your inner dialogue. The voice in your head shifts from doubt to direction. Instead of asking, "Can I do this?" you start asking, "What would the best version of me do next?" That question alone changes behavior. It moves you from reaction to intention. Your environment eventually responds to your identity. People treat you differently when you show up with clarity and consistency. Opportunities align with the energy and standards you project. But this external validation only follows internal change. Visualization ensures that the identity shift happens first, internally, where it matters most. When you mentally become the person you want to be, your actions stop feeling forced. Discipline becomes natural, confidence becomes grounded, and growth becomes sustainable. The future version of you is not something you wait for. It is something you practice in your mind until it becomes real in your life.